Happy Sunday, everyone. It's Ftdk's dropping knowledge coming at you once again. I'm taking a little stroll today. Have to go to the ATM, get some cash out. You know, chilling with the family. About to watch some World Cup games. I don't know if you guys are watching the World Cup. Two very good games today. Brazil's gonna play. I hope they make it through. We'll see. They've been playing a little whack though. They don't have such a great team right now. But hopefully they'll make it through. We'll see what happens. Buenas. Yeah. And then we have Mexico playing today, so I'm really rooting for Mexico. You know, shout out to all my Mexican and Chicano followers and friends, especially those that are part of the Exposed to movement. You know how we get down. That's what we do. Hello. Yeah, so we got some English speakers around, walking around. You know, they're very common, as a matter of fact. But yeah, right now I'm going to the ATM, get some money. I wanted to talk a little bit about these World Cup games. You know, I think if you guys look at some of the countries, like especially if you look at some of the European countries, you're going to see that there are a lot of, you know, players from African descent. You see a lot of players from different countries. You even have like a Japanese player. One of I think their goalie is of African descent as well. And I think it's good, you know, because number one, it demonstrates that you can find talent anywhere. But I also think it's bad because, you know, that just shows you, you know, the problem with immigration around the world. You know, and people really are trying to find better places to live. They're really trying to find better opportunities for their parents, for their kids. You know, they're trying to be healthy. They're trying to run away from wars and, you know, straight abuse. So that's why you have situations where a European country can have like 10 players of African descent or whatever other third world country because of that. Sorry about that. Now there's been some hoopla around the Mexican team because when they were going to face off against Ecuador, all the fans were outside of the hotel room where Ecuador was staying, and they were making noise and, you know, trying to keep them awake, not wanting them to get any rest. And, you know, yeah, I guess it's fucked up, and, you know, they're making it a big thing online. But, you know, that's not the first country to do it. It's not the only country to do it. As a matter of fact, the last time that Mexico came down, and this was during like the swine flu, if you guys remember the swine flu situation back in those days. That was like a few years ago, way before COVID. You know, they did the same thing. They went to the hotel and, you know, they camped out outside and made a bunch of noise because they didn't want them to get any rest. So look, I'm not saying one thing justifies the other, because neither of these things should be happening. I think, you know, it's you know, we're talking about being a sportsman, right? And sportsmanship. You know, even though I'm not like a full proponent for being in sports and following sports, that's for anybody else to decide. I just think that it's important to uphold the values of sports, and one of those values is being a good sportsman, you know, being a good winner and a good loser. You know, being fair, not cheating. No, these are like the main attributes of being a good athlete, is that you don't cheat, is that you compete cleanly. no corruption. You know, so when you act this way and you, as a fan, right, like you can jeer at the other team, you know, you can make fun of their colors or whatever, but you know, I just think that sometimes people get too damn passionate about shit. You want to kill motherfuckers over shit like sports. That's too crazy. So yeah, you know, they're making a big fuck and a big buzz around what happened in Mexico. Plus there's like other little isolated issues with like the owners of Herdes, the Chile condiment company, like how their family was involved in throwing beer at this influencer, and that just opened up a whole can of worms about a bunch of oppression going on in regards to big companies in Mexico. You know, and see, these are the things that we get distracted from. But if you pay attention and observe, which is something I always recommend, just pay attention and observe. You're going to see how a lot of the issues that people have around sports, around certain countries participating in certain events, all leads back to politics, and all of that leads up to some fucking corporation not happy without monopolizing everything. And that's really what it is. So like when you watch the World Cup, you got to ask yourself, like, you know, if this is France, like, why are France's best athletes of African descent? Now you can come up with a bunch of racist shit over that, you know, and I think that there are good athletes in every country. You know, genetics may or may not play a part of it. I do think that sometimes genetics plays a part, but you know, not under regular conditions. You know, under regular conditions, if you work out, if you train, if you practice, you know, you have to have some kind of sport ability to be able to participate in sports, endurance, stamina, whatever. But I mean, you see all kinds of soccer players. You see tall, short, you see skinny, you see European, Asian, and African athletes out on those pitches. But obviously what this means, guys, and this is what I want you guys to understand, when we tie in these things and we look at how the world works, what that just shows me is that the ones that are trying the hardest to be professional soccer players, to represent the national team, are immigrants. They're mostly immigrants. You know, people give immigrants a hard time for waving their flags, celebrating their home countries in sporting events such as this. But you know, they're main contributors to your country. They're paying taxes, they're working, they're doing a lot of things that some of you won't do. In particular, participate in sports. Now, some people are automatically threatened when they see a certain type of individual competing against them. You know, they feel threatened, they take offense to it. But we have to understand that none of it has to do with race. It all has to do with politics and the benefit of those that are in charge of everything that's going on in the world. That's really what it is. You know, and until we can open up our eyes to how displaced people end up going to other countries and thriving. So the fear, guys, is not so much that someone's going to steal a job. The fear is that now they have to compete against someone else for those same jobs. And a lot of people want to get through life just gliding through, you know, making it about race. No, well, it's because of my race, I need to have this type of privilege. They won't come out right away and say it, But that's how they vote, that's how they act, that's how they treat people. They treat people as though they're privileged, those that are in power. You know, and then they've got this other one against Argentina. Now, the Argentina one, I can understand a little more because of the systematic way in which they got rid of all the people, or most of the people of African descent, but they still have a lot of thriving communities of color in Argentina. So it's not true that they were totally erased. Now, was there campaigning, politicking? Was the government involved in shit like that? It wouldn't surprise me. I would have to do a lot more homework. But that does not mean that the people in Argentina or the Argentinians themselves are racist. Because they're not. Did you guys watch the Cabo game? I mean, they congratulated the Cabo players. Like big time. Wow, I'm in the supermarket and it's fucking packed. I'm supposed to do something. Fuck it, I'll try to do it anyway. I gotta go stand in line. I'm gonna go by the ATM, but first I need to do something here at the supermarket. It's nice and cool though, good difference. It's hot as fuck outside. But anyways, no, getting back to this whole thing about the World Cup, you know, they're trying to have people not represent or not come out and actively back up Argentina. Esa es la fila. Gracias. Because of that racist past. Because of what they did so many years ago. But those are governments. And a lot of times we confuse the actions of a country, of governments on its people. But if you go and ask the people themselves, they'll tell you they're against a lot of what the government is doing. And that's true in any country, in every country. No one's ever really truly happy with the type of government that they have. There's always going to be differing opinions, and that's okay. But we got to learn to respect that, right? But what I want you to understand and to see is that the cause and the ills and the evil, quote unquote evil, that you see in the world usually generates around some sort of colonization, around some sort of private entity that gets involved in politics, that begins to lobby in foreign countries, that pay politicians, that try to install puppet leaders, and all of that forces people to be displaced because these companies come in and they're vampires. You know, the mining companies, they set off wars. Like, they set off wars in these countries just to keep prices low. Straight up. So you guys have to be able to see the connections when you watch things. Like, I can watch a World Cup game and I can enjoy the game, but at the same time I'm learning up on every country. I'm seeing what they're going through. I'm seeing why it is that they have a certain mix-up of players, which, you know, and it's just because of education. I understand at the end of the day that immigration exists and it's worldwide. And how does it affect? You can see it in the makeup of the teams. Just watch the teams. I'm going to continue putting out content. Thank you so much to all of you that have subscribed to my channel. You know, this is Ftdk dropping knowledge, coming at you once again. I'm going to continue dropping knowledge. I'll probably go live later on this afternoon. I'll check that out. But in the meantime, until next time, peace.